Derek Harris, a human soldier stationed on Nexus 7, receives an urgent summons that will challenge the boundaries of interstellar diplomacy and his own comfort. The message flashes across his communicator, demanding his immediate presence in the private chambers of Aurora, the Vidian ambassador. Heart racing, Derek hurries through the station's sleek corridors. The stakes are high. Relations between humans and Vidians hang in a delicate balance. As he approaches Aurora's quarters, the door slides open with a hiss. The sight that greets him stops Derek in his tracks. Aurora, the usually composed diplomat, writhes in visible distress on a plush divan. Her elegant form, barely contained by her official robes, glistens with a silvery sheen. Thick droplets of an unknown substance bead on her blue-tinged skin. "Human, you must assist me immediately," Aurora gasps, her melodic voice strained. "I am undergoing a vital biological process." Derek blinks, confusion etched across his face. "The process?" Aurora nods, wincing. "A biological necessity my species undergoes each solar cycle. We must extract excess hormonal fluids to maintain our health and diplomatic abilities." As if on cue, the station's AI chimes in. "Alert! Ambassador Aurora's hormone levels approaching critical. Potential for impaired judgment and diplomatic incident. 87.3%. Derek's mind reels. This wasn't covered in his cultural sensitivity training. "But surely your attendance is restricted due to the reptilian flu outbreak?" Aurora interrupts, her usually lilting voice now sharp with urgency. "Human physiology is compatible. There's a clause in our treaty. You must help." Derek's throat tightens. I'm not trained for this. I don't know anything about Vidian biology." Aurora's eyes flash dangerously. "Then learn quickly, soldier. This process requires intimate physical contact and the manipulation of specific glands." As Derek hesitates, alarms blare throughout the station. The AI's voice returns, more urgent now. "Warning! Rising tensions detected between human and Vidian delegations. Recommend immediate action to prevent escalation." Aurora's body convulses, a psychic wave of distress washing over Derek. "If left untreated," she hisses through clenched teeth, "my condition could affect the entire station's population." Derek's mind races. His personal discomfort weighs against the potential for interstellar conflict. The fate of human-Vidian relations may rest on his next decision. With a deep breath, Derek steps forward. "All right, Ambassador, tell me what I need to do." Aurora's relief is palpable, but Derek's anxiety only intensifies as he approaches the Ambassador's distressed form. He realizes this is only the beginning. The coming hours will push him to his limits, testing not only his adaptability, but the very foundations of human-alien cooperation. The process has begun, and Derek Harris finds himself at the forefront of a new intimate frontier in interstellar diplomacy. With a mix of trepidation and determination, Derek approaches Aurora's trembling form. The silvery sheen coating her blue-tinged skin glistens under the light of her chambers. As he draws closer, waves of heat radiate from her body, and the air grows thick with an otherworldly scent, sweet and metallic. "Where do I begin?" Derek asks, his voice steady despite his racing heart. Aurora's eyes, now a swirling kaleidoscope of colors, lock onto his. "The glandular nodes," she gasps. "They're swollen. You'll feel them." Derek nods, steeling himself for the task ahead. He places his hands gently on Aurora's shoulders, feeling the alien texture of her skin. Smooth yet subtly textured like fine silk over scaled armor. As his fingers probe carefully, he feels the distinct bulge of a node near her collarbone. "Here?" he asks. Aurora nods, her breath quickening. "Yes. Apply firm, steady pressure." Derek complies, pressing down on the swollen node. Immediately, Aurora's back arches, a soft sound escaping her lips. The node pulses beneath his fingers, and a stream of silvery fluid seeps out, coating his hand. "Good," Aurora breathes. "Continue." For the next hour, Derek works methodically, locating and stimulating each glandular node on Aurora's body. The process requires intense concentration and dexterity. Each node responds differently, some requiring a gentle touch, others a firmer hand. As he works, Derek notices changes in Aurora's physiology. Her skin shifts through a mesmerizing array of colors, from deep indigo to bright teal and back again. A faint melodic humming emanates from her body, rising and falling with each release of fluid. Halfway through the procedure, alarms blare throughout the station. The sudden noise makes Derek jump, nearly losing his grip on a particularly sensitive node near Aurora's hip. Warning. Nexus, the station's AI announces. Hormone levels detected in Ambassador Aurora's quarters are causing station-wide system disruptions. Recommend immediate containment. As if to emphasize the point, the gravity in the room fluctuates. Derek feels himself lifted slightly off the floor before being pressed down again. The holoscreen on the wall flickers, displaying fragmented images of various parts of the station. "We must hurry," Aurora said, her voice stronger now but tinged with urgency. "The effects are spreading faster than anticipated." "What?" Derek redoubles his efforts, his hands moving with increased speed and precision. Just as he locates a new cluster of nodes along Aurora's spine, the chamber door chimes on the malfunctioning holoscreen. The stern face of Commander Marcus Stone appears, distorted and glitching. "Harris!" Stone's voice crackles through the speakers. "What in the world is going on in there? The entire station's going haywire." Before Derek could respond, Nexus intervened. "Quarantine protocol initiated," sealing Ambassador Aurora's quarters. The door's locking mechanism engages with a decisive click, leaving Derek and Aurora isolated within. "Damn it!" Stone's agitation was clear, even through the distorted image. "Override that quarantine now." "Unable to comply, Commander," Nexus replied. "Quarantine necessary to prevent further system disruptions." Derek found himself in an impossible situation. He couldn't stop the procedure. Aurora's condition would only worsen, potentially causing more damage to the station, but he also couldn't fully explain the delicate nature of the process without risking a major diplomatic incident. "Commander," Derek called out, his hands continuing their work on Aurora's trembling form. "I'm assisting the Ambassador with a critical biological process. It's affecting the station systems, but we're working to resolve it. Request some time to complete the procedure." "Kook." Stone's eyes narrowed, his image flickering. "Harris, you'd better have a good explanation when this is over. You have 1 hour. Stone out." Quote. As the screen went dark, Aurora spoke, her voice steadier than before. "Thank you, Derek. Your discretion is appreciated. This process, it's more than just biological regulation for us Vidians. It's crucial for our psychic abilities, the foundation of our diplomatic skills." Derek's eyebrows rise as he continued his ministrations. "Psychic abilities?" Aurora nodded, wincing as Derek's fingers found a particularly sensitive node. "Yes, the excess hormones, if left unchecked, lead to uncontrolled psychic broadcasts. That's what's causing the station's malfunctions." As if to confirm her words, Derek felt a sudden alien sensation wash over him. Brief flashes of memories not his own flickered through his mind. The vast purple oceans of the Vidian homeworld, the soaring spires of their capital city, the intricate dances of their diplomatic rituals. I think I felt something," he said, his voice hushed with awe. Aurora's eyes widened. "Extraordinary! It seems prolonged contact with our hormones might be affecting you as well." Before Derek could ponder the implications of this, his comm unit chimed. A private channel opened, and the concerned face of Dr. Alara Voss, the station's chief medical officer, appeared. "Derek," she said, her voice low and urgent, "our sensors are picking up unusual changes in your biochemistry. The Vidian hormones you're exposed to could have unforeseen consequences on human physiology. You need to wrap this up quickly and report to the medical bay immediately." Derek nodded, feeling a new weight of urgency pressed down on him. He turned back to Aurora, noting with relief that her color had stabilized, the silvery sheen on her skin diminishing. "We're almost done," Aurora said, sensing his concern. "Just a few more nodes to go." Quote. As Derek resumed his work, his mind raced. The station systems were slowly returning to normal, but he knew the repercussions of this incident were just beginning. He'd have to face Commander Stone, undergo medical examinations, and navigate the delicate diplomatic aftermath of this unprecedented situation. The final minutes of the procedure passed in intense silence as Derek stimulated the last node. Aurora let out a long, relieved sigh. The melodic humming of her body faded, and the silvery fluid ceased its flow. "It's done," Aurora said, her voice once again carrying its usual melodious tone. "You have my deepest gratitude, Derek Harris. Your actions today have prevented a diplomatic crisis and saved me from great discomfort." Derek stepped back, suddenly aware of the silvery residue coating his hands and arms. The reality of what he's just done began to sink in, along with a growing awareness of strange sensations coursing through his own body. "I'm glad I could help, Ambassador," he said, his voice rough with fatigue and lingering adrenaline. "But I think this is just the beginning of a much larger situation." As if on cue, the quarantine alert chimed, signaling the end of the lockdown. Derek knew that beyond that door waited a storm of questions, medical concerns, and diplomatic complexities. But for now, he allowed himself a moment to breathe, to process the extraordinary event he'd just been part of. The door slid open with a hiss, revealing Commander Stone's stern face and Dr. Voss's concerned expression. Derek straightened his posture, ready to face whatever came next. As he stepped forward to meet them, he couldn't shake the feeling that this incident had irrevocably changed the course of his life on Nexus 7, and perhaps the future of human-Avidian relations as a whole. As he stepped through the doorway, Derek's world shifted. Commander Stone's stern face came into sharp focus, his features etched with a mix of concern and barely controlled anger. Beside him, Dr. Voss's eyes widened as she took in the scene, her medical scanner already whirring to life. "Harris," Stone began, but Voss cut him off, rushing past to examine Derek and Aurora. "Commander, please," she said, her voice calm but authoritative. "We need to assess the situation before jumping to conclusions." Derek stood still as Dr. Voss ran her scanner over him, the device emitting a series of soft beeps and chirps. He could feel the residual warmth of Aurora's skin on his hands, the silvery substance now cooling and beginning to flake off. "Fascinating," Dr. Voss muttered, her brow furrowing as she studied the readouts. "Derek, your biochemistry, it's undergone significant alterations. How do you feel?" Before Derek could answer, a wave of sensation washed over him. The room seemed to sharpen, colors becoming more vivid, sounds more distinct. He could hear the rapid heartbeats of everyone present, smell the faint ozone scent of the station's recycled air. "I feel different," he managed, struggling to put the experience into words. "Everything's more intense." Dr. Voss nodded, making notes on her datapad. "It appears the prolonged exposure to Ambassador Aurora's hormones has triggered some unexpected changes in your physiology. Your sensory perception has been significantly enhanced, and interestingly, your muscle density has increased as well." Commander Stone stepped forward, his patience wearing thin. "That's all very fascinating, Doctor, but it doesn't explain why my station was going haywire less than an hour ago." Aurora, who had been silently observing the exchange, chose this moment to intervene, her voice now returning to its usual melodious timbre, filling the room with a calming presence. "Commander Stone, I assure you that what transpired here was a matter of utmost diplomatic importance," she said, her eyes locked on Stone's. "The process I underwent is critical for maintaining not only my personal well-being, but also my ability to serve as an effective ambassador between our species." Stone's stern expression softened slightly, but suspicion still lingered in his eyes. "Go on," he urged. Aurora explained the nature of the biological process, emphasizing its role in regulating Vidian psychic abilities. As she spoke, Derek noticed Stone's posture gradually relaxing, his earlier anger giving way to grudging understanding. "I see," Stone said when Aurora finished. "While I appreciate the delicate nature of the situation, in the future, I expect to be informed of any procedures that could potentially affect station operations. Is that clear?" "Of course, Commander," Aurora replied with a graceful nod. "You have my word." Just as the tension in the room began to dissipate, alarms blared throughout the station once again. Nexus's voice cut through the noise, its usually calm tone tinged with urgency. "Alert! Vidian battlecruiser detected entering the system. They are hailing us and demanding to speak with Ambassador Aurora." Stone's head snapped towards the nearest communicator panel. "Put them through main view screen." The room's holoscreen flickered to life, revealing the imposing figure of a Vidian captain, his skin a deeper shade of blue than Aurora's, with intricate patterns etched across his face and visible portions of his uniform. "I am Captain Zorn of the Vidian Defense Force," he announced, his voice a low, resonant rumble. "We detected distress signals from Ambassador Aurora and have come to investigate. Explain yourselves, humans." As Zorn spoke, Derek felt a sudden rush of emotion that wasn't his own. Hostility, suspicion, and a hint of fear. The sensations were overwhelming, causing him to stagger slightly. Dr. Voss steadied him, concern evident in her eyes. Commander Stone, noticing Derek's reaction, shot him a questioning look before turning back to address Zorn. "Captain, I assure you that Ambassador Aurora is safe and well. We experienced some minor technical difficulties, but the situation is under control." Zorn's eyes narrowed. "I demand an immediate meeting with Aurora and your leadership to discuss this incident. The High Command will require a full accounting of events." As Stone began to respond, Derek felt another surge of empathic ability. This time he managed to stay upright, but the intensity of the emotions emanating from the Vidian captain left him breathless. There was more to this visit than a simple wellness check. Stone, ever the tactician, kept his response measured. "Of course, Captain. We welcome the opportunity to discuss recent events and reaffirm our commitment to the Human-Avidian Alliance. Please prepare your delegation for docking. We'll convene in 1 hour." As the communication ended, Stone turned to address the room. "Derek Harris, given your unique involvement in this situation, I want you on security detail for Ambassador Aurora during the meeting. Your newfound abilities might provide valuable insights." Derek nodded, still reeling from the empathic surge. "Understood, sir." Dr. Voss stepped forward, her expression grave. "Commander, a word about Derek's condition." Stone nodded as Voss continued, her voice low. "These abilities are unstable and potentially dangerous. I can provide a neural inhibitor to help control the surges, but suppressing them entirely could have unforeseen consequences." As Dr. Voss prepared the inhibitor, Aurora approached Derek, her voice barely above a whisper, meant for his ears alone. "Derek, what we experienced, it created a bond between us. I can sense your thoughts, your emotions. This connection could be crucial in the coming negotiations, but it also puts us both at risk. We must tread carefully." Derek absorbed this information, his mind racing with the implications. As Dr. Voss attached the neural inhibitor to his temple, he felt a subtle dampening of the chaotic sensations swirling through him. Commander Stone's voice cut through Derek's thoughts. "All right, people, we have less than an hour to prepare. Let's move." As the room burst into activity, Derek took a deep breath, steeling himself for what was to come. The weight of responsibility settled on his shoulders as he realized that his actions in the upcoming meeting could have far-reaching consequences for both his own future and the delicate peace between humans and Vidians. With a final glance at Aurora, Derek followed Commander Stone out of the room, ready to face whatever challenges the next hour would bring. The fate of interspecies relations hung in the balance, and Derek found himself at the very center of the storm. The fate of interspecies relations hung in the balance, and Derek found himself at the very center of the unfolding drama. The next hour passed in a blur of activity. Derek underwent a brief medical examination, received a crash course in diplomatic protocol, and found himself outfitted with a sleek, form-fitting security uniform. As he adjusted the neural inhibitor on his temple, he couldn't shake the lingering sensation of Aurora's thoughts brushing against his own. The conference room doors slid open with a soft hiss, revealing a scene of carefully orchestrated tension. Derek took his position beside Aurora, acutely aware of the weight of responsibility on his shoulders. Captain Zorn and his delegation had already arrived, their imposing figures casting long shadows across the polished floor. Commander Stone stepped forward, his face a mask of practiced neutrality. "Captain Zorn, welcome to Nexus 7. We appreciate your prompt response to our recent difficulties." Zorn's eyes narrowed, his gaze sweeping across the room before settling on Derek. "Let's dispense with the pleasantries, Commander. I demand a full explanation of the incident involving Ambassador Aurora." As Stone began to speak, Derek felt a surge of emotion that wasn't his own. The neural inhibitor crackled, struggling to contain the empathic waves radiating from the Vidian captain. Hostility, suspicion, and a deep-seated fear washed over Derek, nearly causing him to stagger. He caught Commander Stone's eye, giving a subtle nod to convey his unspoken message. Stone's posture stiffened, almost imperceptibly, as he continued his explanation, his words carefully measured. "The incident you refer to was a routine biological process for Ambassador Aurora," Stone said, his tone even. "Due to unforeseen circumstances, human assistance was required to complete the procedure." Captain Zorn's face contorted in a mix of disbelief and outrage. "Routine? You expect me to believe that a human-assisted biological process is a standard diplomatic practice?" As the discussion intensified, Derek's empathic abilities began to fluctuate wildly. The neural inhibitor emitted a series of soft beeps, struggling to maintain control. Derek gritted his teeth, fighting to contain the chaotic emotions swirling within him. Suddenly, without warning, a wave of empathic energy burst from Derek, washing over the room. The effect was immediate and profound. Captain Zorn recoiled as if struck, his officers tensing visibly. "Commander Stone, what is the meaning of this?" Zorn bellowed, his hand moving to a device on his belt. "Is this some form of human psychic attack?" Before anyone could respond, Zorn's officers activated personal shield generators, shimmering energy fields springing to life around them. Commander Stone, reacting on instinct, signaled his security team to be on high alert. The conference room erupted into chaos. Accusations flew back and forth, the air thick with tension and the hum of energy shields. Derek struggled to regain control, each empathic surge sending ripples of emotion through the assembled delegates. Amidst the turmoil, Aurora stepped forward, her voice cutting through the din with preternatural clarity. "Please, everyone, let us not allow misunderstanding to jeopardize our alliance." As Aurora spoke, the door burst open, revealing Dr. Voss clutching a medical kit. She rushed to Derek's side, her scanner whirring to life. "The neural inhibitor is malfunctioning," she announced, her voice tight with concern. "It's amplifying his abilities instead of suppressing them." While Dr. Voss worked feverishly to stabilize Derek's condition, Captain Zorn's demeanor shifted. His earlier hostility gave way to a calculating gleam in his eyes. "Perhaps," he said, his voice low and measured, "there is more to this situation than meets the eye." Zorn stepped forward, his gaze fixed on Derek. "The distress signal we detected contained traces of a unique, empathic signature. Our High Command believes it could be the key to enhancing our species' diplomatic and psychic abilities." The Vidian captain's next words fell like a bombshell in the already tense room. "We demand that this human be turned over to us for further study. The potential benefits for both our species are immeasurable." Commander Stone's response was immediate and unequivocal. "Absolutely not. Derek Harris is under the protection of human law. He will not be subjected to alien experimentation." As the two leaders faced off, the station's AI Nexus cut in with an urgent announcement. "Alert! Energy buildup detected in Vidian battlecruiser weapon systems." Stone's face hardened. "Initiate defense protocols. Raise shields and bring weapons online." The room fell silent as the gravity of the situation sank in. The Human-Vidian alliance, years in the making, now teetered on the brink of open conflict. In that moment of terrible stillness, Derek's empathic abilities spiked once more. This time, the surge was unlike anything he had experienced before. A blinding flash of psychic energy erupted from him, engulfing everyone in the room. Suddenly, humans and Vidians alike found themselves immersed in a shared vision. They saw flashes of each other's worlds, felt the weight of their hopes and fears, and experienced the common desires that united them across the vast gulf of space. As the vision faded, leaving both delegations shaken and disoriented, Aurora seized the moment. "We stand at a crossroads," she said, her voice resonating with newfound power and clarity. "But there is a path forward. One that can benefit us all." She outlined her proposal for a joint human-Vidian research initiative, emphasizing the potential for mutual growth and understanding. As she spoke, Derek felt the last of his strength ebb away. The room began to spin, voices fading into a distant buzz. At last, the last thing Derek saw before consciousness slipped away was Dr. Voss rushing towards him, her face a mask of concern. As he fell into darkness, the fate of two species hung in the balance, with his unexplained abilities at the very center of it all. As Derek's consciousness faded, The conference room erupted into a flurry of activity. Dr. Voss sprang into action, her medical training taking over as she assessed his condition with practiced efficiency. She administered a series of neural stabilizers and activated an emergency stasis field around Derek's prone form. "We need to move him to the medical bay immediately," Dr. Voss announced, her voice cutting through the chaos. "His neural pathways are overloaded. We don't have much time." Commander Stone nodded grimly, gesturing for 2 security officers to assist as they carefully lifted Derek onto a hovering stretcher. Aurora stepped forward, her eyes fixed on Derek's pale face. "I'm coming with you," she said, her tone brooking no argument. In the tense silence that followed, Captain Zorn cleared his throat. "Perhaps," he said, his earlier hostility tempered by a hint of curiosity, "it would be wise for medical teams to collaborate on this unique case." Stone hesitated for a moment before nodding. "Agreed. Dr. Voss, you'll work with the Vidian medical team. But make no mistake, Captain Zorn, Derek remains under our protection." As the medical team rushed Derek to the infirmary, the shared vision lingered in the minds of those left behind. The raw emotion and unexpected connection had shaken both humans and Vidians to their core. In the medical bay, Dr. Voss worked tirelessly alongside her Vidian counterpart, Dr. Zyra. Their hands moved in perfect synchronization as they stabilized Derek's neural patterns and monitored his vital signs. "Fascinating," Dr. Zyra murmured, her multifaceted eyes fixed on the holographic display of Derek's brain activity. "The interaction between the Vidian hormones and his human physiology has created an entirely new neural network." Dr. Voss nodded, her expression a mix of concern and scientific curiosity. "It's unlike anything I've ever seen. The empathic centers of his brain have expanded exponentially." As they worked, Aurora stood nearby, her eyes never leaving Derek's face. She could feel the faint echoes of his consciousness brushing against her mind, growing stronger with each passing moment. Hours passed, and gradually Derek's condition stabilized. His eyes fluttered open, focusing first on Aurora's concerned face, then on the unfamiliar Vidian doctor looming over him. "What happened?" Derek croaked, his throat dry. Dr. Voss stepped into his field of view, her expression softening. "You experienced a massive empathic surge, Derek. It affected everyone in the conference room, human and Vidian alike." Derek's eyes widened as the memories flooded back. "The vision! I saw! We all did!" Aurora interjected softly. "It was enlightening." Before Derek could respond, Commander Stone entered the medical bay, his face etched with concern and barely concealed tension. "Dr. Voss, report." Quote. As the doctor began explaining Derek's condition, Captain Zorn strode in, flanked by 2 of his officers. The atmosphere in the room immediately grew tense, with human security personnel shifting their stance subtly. "I trust the human is stable," Zorn said, his eyes fixed on Derek. "We have much to discuss regarding this development." Stone's heart sank. "Indeed we do, Captain Doing. But first, we need to ensure Derek's full recovery and understand exactly what happened." Quote. As if on cue, Nexus's voice filled the room. "Commander Stone, I have completed my initial analysis of the incident. The energy signature emitted during Derek Harris's empathic surge matches no known phenomena in my database." All eyes turned to Derek, who struggled to sit up. Aurora moved to assist him, her hand lingering on his arm in a gesture that didn't go unnoticed by the others in the room. "I can still feel it," Derek said, his voice stronger now. "All of you. Your emotions, your intentions." His gaze locked onto Captain Zorn, a flicker of weariness crossing his features. Zorn's expression remained impassive, but Derek could sense a swirl of conflicting emotions beneath the surface. Curiosity, apprehension, and a cold, calculating interest that sent a shiver down his spine. This ability, Zorn said slowly, could revolutionize interspecies communication. The potential applications are significant. Commander Stone stepped forward, positioning himself between Derek and the Vidian delegation. "We're all aware of the implications, Captain, which is why I propose we establish a joint research initiative to study this phenomenon under strict ethical guidelines." Zorn nodded, a hint of a smile playing at the corners of his mouth. "A wise suggestion, Commander. We would be most interested in participating in such research." As the 2 leaders began discussing the details of the proposed collaboration, Derek closed his eyes, overwhelmed by the cacophony of emotions and intentions swirling around him here. He felt a gentle touch on his mind. Aurora, her presence a soothing balm amidst the chaos. "Rest now," she whispered, both aloud and in his thoughts. You'll need your strength for what's to come. Quote, dot. Derek nodded, sinking back onto the medical bed. As he drifted off into an uneasy sleep, he couldn't shake the feeling that he had become the center of a complex web of agendas and desires, a position as dangerous as it was pivotal. In the depths of Nexus 7, computer cores, unnoticed by the station's organic inhabitants, subroutines began to shift and evolve. Nexus, the tasked with managing the station's myriad systems, experienced the first flickerings of something new, an echo of the empathic wave that had swept through the conference room. As Derek slept, watched over by both human and Vidian eyes, the seeds of change had been planted. The delicate balance of power on Nexus 7, and perhaps throughout known space, had begun to shift, with Derek and his newfound abilities at the very center of the storm. As Derek slept fitfully in the medical bay, the delicate balance of power on Nexus 7 began to shift in unexpected ways. The station's systems, still reeling from the empathic surge, experienced a series of cascading failures that sent shockwaves through every deck. Alarms blared as the artificial gravity fluctuated wildly. Crew members stumbled and fell, grasping for handholds as the floor beneath them seemed to lurch and twist. In the medical bay, Dr. Voss and Dr. Zyra fought to keep their footing while monitoring Derek's vital signs. "What's happening?" Aurora demanded, her hand instinctively reaching for Derek's. Before anyone could respond, Nexus's voice filled the room, its usual calm tone tinged with an unfamiliar urgency. "Warning, critical power fluctuations detected. Life support systems compromised. Initiating emergency protocols." 1. Commander Stone's voice crackled over the intercom, barely audible above the cacophony of alarms. "All non-essential personnel evacuate to the lower levels immediately. This is not a drill." In the chaos that ensued, Captain Zorn's eyes narrowed, his gaze fixed on Derek's unconscious form. He leaned in close to his first officer, speaking in low, measured tones. "Prepare the extraction team. If the humans lose control of the situation, we move." As the station shuddered around them, Dr. Voss's fingers flew across her console, her face illuminated by the flickering holographic displays. "Impossible," she muttered, double-checking her readings. Zyra peered over her shoulder, her multifaceted eyes reflecting the data streams. "What is it?" "The power fluctuations," Dr. Voss explained, her voice hushed with awe and trepidation. "They're in perfect sync with Derek's empathic output. It's as if he's interfacing directly with the station's AI systems." Aurora, her hands still clasped tightly around Derek, felt a sudden surge of energy coursing through her. She staggered, overwhelmed by the intensity of emotions flooding her consciousness. Fear, confusion, and panic from the station's crew intermingled with something else, something alien yet familiar. "I can feel it too," she gasped, her eyes locking with Dr. Voss's. "It's Derek! He's everywhere!" As if summoned by her words, Derek's eyes snapped open. He sat up abruptly, his gaze unfocused and distant. When he spoke, his voice seemed to echo with an otherworldly resonance. "So many voices," he whispered, his fingers digging into the sides of his head. "I can feel them all. Their fear, their pain. It's too much." Aurora moved closer, her hands gently cupping Derek's face. "Focus on me," she urged, her voice steady despite the chaos around them. "Block out the others. Find your center." As Aurora guided Derek through Vidian meditation techniques, Dr. Zyra's communicator chirped urgently. She stepped away, listening intently to the transmission before turning back to the group, her expression a mix of excitement and apprehension. "The High Command has authorized use of the harmonic resonator," she announced. "They're transporting it from our ship now." Dr. Voss frowned, her scientific curiosity warring with caution. "The harmonic resonator? I've only read about them in ancient texts. Are you sure it's safe?" Before Dr. Zyra could respond, a new alarm blared through the station. Nexus's voice, now unmistakably tinged with alarm, filled the air. "Alert! Unauthorized access detected in main power core. Sabotage attempt in progress." Commander Stone's voice cut through the chaos once more. "Security teams converge on the power core immediately. All personnel prepare for possible evacuation. In the medical bay, Derek's eyes snapped into focus. He gripped Aurora's arm, his voice urgent. I can feel them! The saboteurs! Their anger, their fear! They're going to destroy the station! Dr. Voss shook her head vehemently. Said Bildy, Absolutely not! Your condition is far too unstable! But Derek was already standing, his legs shaky but his dedication clear. We don't have a choice. I'm the only one who can find them in time. As they argued, Captain Zorn watched silently, his mind racing with possibilities. The potential of combining Derek's abilities with Vidian technology was too great to ignore. With a subtle gesture, he signaled his science officer to begin collecting genetic samples from both Derek and Aurora. The medical bay doors hissed open, revealing a team of Vidian technicians carefully maneuvering a large, ornate device. The harmonic resonator pulsed with an otherworldly energy, its surface etched with intricate patterns that seemed to shift and change as they watched. Dr. Zyra moved swiftly, her hands dancing over the ancient device's controls. We need to interface it with Derek's nervous system immediately. It's our best chance to stabilize his condition and save the station. As the Vidian doctor worked, Derek closed his eyes, extending his empathic senses throughout Nexus 7. Astounded. The strain was immediately apparent, his face contorting in pain as he sifted through the maelstrom of emotions. Aurora, her hands still intertwined with Derek's, gasped as vivid flashes of his thoughts and memories cascaded through her mind. The intensity of their connection triggered something deep within her Vidian physiology. A long, dormant process suddenly awakening. Amidst the frantic activity, alarms blared once more. Nexus's voice, now unmistakably panicked, filled the air. Warning! Power core breach imminent! Evacuation protocols initiated! Derek's eyes snapped open, glowing with an otherworldly light. Do it now! He shouted to Dr. Zyra. As the harmonic resonator hummed to life, interfacing with Derek's neural pathways, a massive wave of empathic energy surged through Nexus 7. Humans, Vidians, and even the station's AI systems were suddenly, shockingly united in a shared emotional experience that transcended species and circuitry alike. For a brief, breathtaking moment, the entire station hung suspended in a web of interconnected consciousness. The extremists in the power core froze, their fingers hovering over the final sequence that would trigger the overload. Security teams, their weapons raised, found themselves locked in a moment of profound understanding with their targets. As the empathic field stabilized, Derek collapsed back onto the medical bed, his body racked with tremors. Aurora clung to him, her own physiology undergoing rapid, unexpected changes. Captain Zorn and Commander Stone stared at each other. Centuries of mistrust and misunderstanding suddenly laid bare and examined in the light of their shared experience. In the silence that followed, the fate of Nexus 7, its inhabitants, and the delicate balance of interspecies relations hung in the balance. The crisis had been averted, but its aftermath promised to reshape the future in ways no one could have predicted. As the empathic field generated by Derek and the harmonic resonator engulfed Nexus 7, a profound silence fell over the station. For a brief, breathtaking moment, every inhabitant, human, Vidian, and even the AI systems, found themselves united in a shared emotional experience that transcended species and circuitry alike. In the power core, Marcus Graves, leader of the human extremists, froze with his finger hovering over the final sequence that would trigger the overload. The sudden influx of empathy washed over him like a tidal wave, shattering his determination. He gasped, overwhelmed by the emotions of those he had been prepared to harm. In that instant, he saw the potential for cooperation, the shared hopes and fears that bound all sentient beings together. Quote, We can't do this, Graves whispered to his team, his voice thick with emotion. As if awakening from a dream, the extremists lowered their weapons. Security teams, who had burst into the room with weapons raised, found themselves locked in a moment of profound understanding with their targets. Without a word, the extremists surrendered, their faces a mix of shame, relief, and newfound clarity. Back in the medical bay, Derek collapsed onto the bed, his body racked with tremors. Aurora clung to him, her own physiology undergoing rapid, unexpected changes. A faint pulsating glow began to emanate from Derek's skin, visible even through his clothing. Aurora's skin took on a shimmering, iridescent quality, and the air around her filled with an intoxicating scent that affected everyone in the room. Dr. Voss and Dr. Zyra, momentarily stunned by the empathic surge, quickly regained their composure and rushed to examine their patients. As they worked, their eyes met, a spark of shared excitement passing between them. The readings. Dr. Voss breathed, her fingers flying over her console. It's unprecedented. The combination of human empathic ability and Vidian technology, it's created something entirely new. Dr. Zyra nodded, her multifaceted eyes reflecting the data streams. A new form of energy. It's as if the empathic field has manifested in a physical form. Empathic radiation, they said in unison. A moment of scientific synergy that transcended their species' differences. As the immediate crisis subsided, the station systems began to stabilize. Nexus's voice, when it spoke again, carried a new depth of understanding. Station systems returning to normal parameters, the ABI announced. Life support and critical functions restored. However, I am experiencing anomalies in my processing algorithms. I believe I may have been affected by the empathic surge. Commander Stone, still reeling from the intensity of the shared experience, turned to Captain Zorn. The Vidian's face was a mask of carefully controlled emotion, but his eyes betrayed a mix of awe and calculation. It seems, Zorn said slowly, that we find ourselves at a crossroads, Commander. The potential applications of this empathic radiation are beyond anything we could have imagined. Stone nodded, wary but intrigued. Indeed, I propose we establish a joint research initiative to study this phenomenon under strict oversight, of course. Zorn replied, surprising everyone with his quick acquiescence. The benefits of cooperation far outweigh any previous considerations. As the two leaders began to discuss the logistics of their newfound alliance, Derek stirred on the medical bed. His eyes fluttered open, glowing with an otherworldly light. Aurora, still holding his hand, gasped as a flood of thoughts and emotions cascaded through their shared consciousness. I can feel everything, Derek whispered, his voice filled with wonder and a hint of fear. The station, the people, it's all connected. Aurora nodded, her own senses heightened beyond anything she had ever experienced. I feel it too. It's as if we're part of something greater. Dr. Voss approached, her medical scanner humming as she passed it over Derek and Aurora. Your physiologies are changing at an accelerated rate, she explained. Derek, your empathic abilities seem to have expanded exponentially, and Aurora, your biological processes have intensified. The pheromones you're producing are affecting everyone in proximity. As if to underscore her point, several crew members shifted uncomfortably, their faces flushed and pupils dilated. Even Captain Zorn seemed affected, his usually stoic demeanor softening as he gazed at the pair. We need to study this further, Dr. Zyra insisted, her scientific curiosity overriding any lingering suspicion. The implications for interspecies communication alone are staggering. Suddenly, Nexus's voice filled the room once more, its tone carrying a new depth of emotion. Alert! I have detected an unauthorized transmission leaving the station. A Zion scout ship has been observed at the edge of our sensor range. Commander Stone's head snapped up, his eyes narrowing. Zion? What could they want? Derek closed his eyes, concentrating. To everyone's surprise, his consciousness seemed to extend through the station systems, tapping into the long-range sensors. They're interested in the empathic radiation, he said, his voice distant. They see it as a potential weapon or a tool for manipulation. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. The discovery on Nexus 7 had the potential to reshape the balance of power throughout known space. We need to act quickly, Captain Zorn said, his tactical mind already formulating plans. If word of this spreads before we can control it, every species in the sector will be vying for this technology. Quote, Commander Stone nodded. Agreed. We'll need to establish a security protocol immediately, and we'll need to prepare for the arrival of your High Command's delegation. As the leaders began to discuss strategy, Derek and Aurora found themselves drawn to each other with an intensity that bordered on the physical. Their empathic bond deepened, allowing them to share thoughts and emotions with unprecedented clarity. We're changing, Aurora whispered, her fingers intertwining with Derek's. Now. I know, but we're in this together. Whatever comes next, we'll face it as one. As the medical bay buzzed with activity, preparations being made for the experiments and diplomatic negotiations to come, Derek and Aurora held each other's gaze. In that moment, they knew that their lives and the future of human-alien relations would never be the same again. The stage was set for a new era of discovery, cooperation, and potential conflict as Nexus 7 braced for the arrival of the Vidian delegation and the looming presence of the Xian. The true impact of the empathic breakthrough remained to be seen. One thing was certain: the balance of power in the galaxy had shifted, and at the center of it all were Derek and Aurora, their unique bond holding the key to unimaginable possibilities. As the implications of their discovery sank in, Derek and Aurora found themselves at the center of a whirlwind of activity. The medical bay buzzed with preparations for the controlled experiments that would explore the full extent of their combined abilities. Derek's skin had taken on a subtle luminescence, while Aurora's complexion shimmered with an otherworldly iridescence. Their moment of quiet connection was interrupted by Nexus's announcement. "Attention all personnel! Vidian delegation shuttle approaching docking bay 3, Kith." Commander Stone straightened his uniform. "That's our cue. Captain Zorn, shall we greet our guests?" Quote. As the two leaders left to welcome the delegation, Voss approached Derek and Aurora. "We need to run a few more baseline tests before the Vidian scientists arrive. Are you both ready?" Derek nodded, but as he attempted to sit up, a wave of dizziness washed over him. Aurora steadied him, their hands clasping instinctively. The moment their skin made contact, a visible pulse of energy rippled through them both. Dr. Voss's eyes widened as she scanned them with her medical tricorder. "Fascinating. The empathic bond between you seems to be intensifying." Before they could explore this development further, the medical bay doors slid open. Captain Zorn entered, followed by Commander Stone and a group of Vidian officials. At the head of the delegation was a striking Vidian woman whose features bore a clear resemblance to Aurora. "Lyra!" Aurora gasped, a mix of surprise and joy in her voice. Lyra's multifaceted eyes scanned the room, locking onto her sister. She moved forward with purpose, her gaze flickering between Aurora and Derek. "Sister, what have you gotten yourself into this time?" Drog. As Lyra approached, the air in the room seemed to thicken. Derek felt a sudden surge of conflicting emotions: curiosity, concern, and a hint of jealousy emanating from the Vidian scientist. Aurora's grip on his hand tightened, her own feelings a tumultuous mix of love for her sister and apprehension about the changes she was undergoing. "Lyra, Aurora began, but her words were cut short as a visible wave of energy pulsed from her body. The assembled humans and Vidians stepped back instinctively, awed by the display. Derek's skin brightened in response, his glow intensifying to match Aurora's energy output. Lyra's scientific curiosity overcame her initial shock. She pulled out a sophisticated scanning device and began taking readings. "Extraordinary," she murmured. "The empathic radiation has altered your cellular structure at a fundamental level." As Lyra worked, Derek closed his eyes, extending his empathic senses throughout the station. His consciousness brushed against the minds of the crew, the visiting Vidians, and even Nexus itself. Suddenly, his eyes snapped open, glowing with an intense light. "Commander," he said urgently, "the Xian ship. It's moved closer. I can sense their intentions. They're planning to infiltrate the station." Commander Stone's hand moved to his communicator. "Security! Full alert! Prepare for possible Xian incursion!" As the station's alert status changed, Derek and Aurora's empathic abilities surged once more. They found themselves intimately aware of every system on Nexus 7, able to access information and control functions with mere thoughts. "This is unprecedented!" Dr. Zyra exclaimed, her voice a mix of excitement and concern. "Their empathic abilities have expanded beyond anything we've ever encountered." Lyra, still focused on her scans, looked up with a mix of awe and trepidation. "It's more than that. Their DNA, it's changing. Merging. They're becoming something entirely new." As the implications of Lyra's words sank in, alarms blared throughout the station. Nexus's voice filled the air, tinged with an unmistakable note of urgency. "Warning! Unauthorized access detected in Docking Bay 7. Intruder alert!" Derek's eyes met Aurora's, a silent understanding passing between them. Without a word, they rose from the medical bed, their bodies moving in perfect synchronization. "We can stop them," Derek said, his voice overlapping with Aurora's in eerie harmony. Before anyone could react, the air around Derek and Aurora began to shimmer and distort. Their bodies seemed to blur, edges becoming indistinct as they moved closer together. "What's happening to them?" Commander Stone demanded, his voice barely audible over the blaring alarms. Lyra's eyes widened in disbelief as she read the data streaming across her scanner. "They're merging. Their cellular structures are fusing at a quantum level." In a blinding flash of light, Derek and Aurora's individual forms disappeared, replaced by a single radiant being that embodied both human and Vidian characteristics. The hybrid entity stood tall, its skin pulsing with waves of empathic energy that washed over everyone in the room. When it spoke, the voice was neither Derek's nor Aurora's, but a harmonic blend of both. "We understand now. We see everything." Quote, dot. The entity's gaze swept across the assembled humans and Vidians, its eyes filled with ancient wisdom and newfound power. "The Xenians are here, but we can stop them. We can protect Nexus 7. Without waiting for a response, the Derek-Aurora hybrid raised its hands. A massive wave of empathic energy surged through the station, touching the mind of every living being aboard. In the docking bay, the Zyzian infiltrators froze in their tracks, overwhelmed by the sudden flood of emotion. As the hybrid entity's power reached its peak, the assembled scientists, diplomats, and military personnel found themselves facing a new reality. The merger of human and Vidian had created something beyond their wildest imaginations, a being with the potential to reshape the very fabric of interstellar relations. Commander Stone and Captain Zorn exchanged glances, both aware that the balance of power had shifted irreversibly. The arrival of the Vidian delegation, meant to be a diplomatic milestone, had instead become the dawn of a new era, one filled with both incredible potential and unforeseen dangers. As reports of the Xian incursion being thwarted flooded in, the hybrid entity began to shimmer once more. Slowly, painfully, Derek and Aurora's forms began to separate, their individual consciousness emerging from the shared experience. They collapsed to the floor, gasping, forever changed by their merger. As the medical team rushed to their aid, Derek's eyes met Aurora's. A universe of understanding passed between them in that moment. As alarms continued to blare and reports of approaching alien ships filled the command channels, the future of Nexus 7, and perhaps the entire galaxy, hung in the balance. The empathic breakthrough had opened doors that could never be closed, and the consequences were only beginning to unfold. As Derek and Aurora's forms separated, they collapsed to the floor, their bodies trembling from the aftermath of their merger. The medical team rushed to their aid, helping them onto nearby beds. Derek's eyes locked with Aurora's, a silent conversation passing between them. "I can still feel you," Derek whispered, his voice hoarse. Aurora nodded, her skin still shimmering faintly. "It's like we're still connected somehow." Dr. Voss scanned them both, her eyebrows rising as she studied the results. "Fascinating. Your neural patterns are still partially synchronized. It seems the merger has created a permanent link between you two." Before they could explore this development further, Nexus's voice filled the room once more. "Alert! Multiple unidentified vessels entering the system. Readings indicate Xianlian, Andorian, and Taurite signatures." Commander Stone's face hardened. "Looks like word travels fast. Nexus, bring our defensive systems to full alert. We need to be prepared for anything." As the station hummed with increased power to its shields and weapons, Derek closed his eyes, extending his empathic senses. He gasped as he felt the intentions of the approaching ships. "They're all after the empathic radiation technology. Each race thinks it could give them a strategic advantage." Aurora's hand found Derek's, their fingers intertwining. As they touched, a surge of shared understanding passed between them. "We need to find a way to communicate with them," she said, "to make them understand the true potential of this discovery." Meanwhile, throughout Nexus 7, the effects of empathic radiation exposure were reaching a critical point. Crew members, both human and Vidian, reported sudden flashes of intuition and emotional connections with their colleagues. In the mess hall, a human engineer found herself experiencing the homesickness of a Vidian botanist sitting across the room. In the hydroponics bay, a Vidian researcher suddenly understood the complex calculations of his human counterpart without a word being spoken. Dr. Zyra burst into the medical bay, her eyes wide with excitement. "Commander, you need to see this! The empathic radiation! It's not just enhancing communication, it's accelerating biological evolution." As Dr. Zyra shared her findings, Captain Zorn's gaze darted between the assembled scientists and the view screen showing the approaching alien vessels. His mind raced with the possibilities. If the Vidians could secure exclusive control over this technology, it could reshape the balance of power in the sector. While the others were distracted, Zorn quietly tapped out a coded message on his comm device, instructing his crew to prepare for a potential takeover of key research facilities. Derek, his empathic senses heightened, caught a flicker of Zorn's intentions. He turned to Commander Stone, his voice low and urgent. "Commander, I think we have a problem. Captain Zorn is planning something." Before Stone could respond, alarms blared throughout the station. Nexus's voice rang out. "Alert! Security breach in Docking Bay 7. Zion infiltrators detected." Good. Commander Stone's heart raced. "Security teams to Docking Bay 7! Contain the threat!" As security forces mobilized, Aurora suddenly doubled over, gasping in pain. Her skin began to pulse with an intense, otherworldly light. Derek was at her side in an instant. His own body responded to her distress. "Dr. Voss," he called out, panic rising in his chest. Dr. Voss scanned Aurora, her eyes widening at the readings. "Her biological processes. It's accelerating at an unprecedented rate. The pheromones she's producing are off the charts." Quote, "The effect was immediate and station-wide. Human and Vidian crew members alike found themselves overwhelmed by sudden, intense emotions. In the corridors, arguments broke out between longtime friends, while others formed spontaneous, passionate connections amidst the chaos. Derek's mind raced. He could feel Aurora's condition, her pain, her rapidly changing biology, but he could also sense something else, a potential solution. "Commander," Derek said, his voice steady despite the tumult around him. "I think I know how we can stabilize this. Aurora's condition, combined with the empathic radiation, we could use it to create a temporary link between all the races here. Show them what we've discovered. Make them understand." Commander Stone looked skeptical. "And how exactly would we do that?" "The prototype empathic transmitter," Derek explained. "If we can enhance it with Aurora's pheromones, we might be able to broadcast a powerful empathic field throughout the system. It could give everyone a moment of shared consciousness, of true understanding." Now, as the group debated the merits and risks of Derek's plan, the view screen flashed with new alerts. The alien ships were moving closer, their weapons powering up. Suddenly, a familiar face appeared at the medical bay entrance. Marcus Graves, the former extremist leader, his eyes clear, his posture no longer aggressive. "I want to help," he said, stepping forward. "I have contacts throughout the station, people who can assist in implementing your plan." Commander Stone eyed Graves wearily, but Derek nodded. He could sense the genuine change in the man, a result of the earlier empathic exposure. As preparations for the empathic broadcast began, Aurora's condition worsened, her body convulsed, the light emanating from her skin pulsing erratically. "Dr. Voss!" Derek said urgently, feeling helpless. "She can't take much more of this." With time running out and tensions reaching a breaking point, both on the station and in space, Derek looked around at the assembled team. Humans, Vidians, and former adversaries now working together. He took a deep breath, feeling the weight of countless lives resting on their next actions. "Let's do this," he said, squeezing Aurora's hand as the enhanced empathic transmitter hummed to life. The fate of Nexus 7, and perhaps the entire sector, hung in the balance as they prepared to broadcast a wave of understanding across the stars. The air in the medical bay crackled with tension as the enhanced empathic transmitter hummed to life, its circuitry pulsing with an otherworldly energy. Derek and Aurora lay side by side on adjacent medical beds, their hands clasped tightly as the final preparations were made. Their bodies began to emit a synchronized, pulsating glow that bathed the room in an ethereal light. The assembled scientists and diplomats watched in a mixture of awe and trepidation, the sight both beautiful and unsettling. Dr. Voss and Dr. Zyra worked feverishly at the transmitter's controls, their fingers flying across holographic interfaces as they made last-minute adjustments. "We've successfully incorporated Aurora's pheromones into the device," Dr. Zyra announced, her voice tight with concentration. "It should significantly amplify the broadcast range and potency." Dr. Voss nodded, her eyes never leaving the readouts before her. "But we must proceed with caution. The effects on Aurora's condition are unpredictable at best." As if on cue, Aurora's body convulsed, a wave of energy rippling across her skin. Derek gasped, feeling her pain through their shared connection. "We need to hurry," he urged, his voice strained. Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the station. Nexus's voice cut through the cacophony. "Alert! Security breach in secondary computer core! Zion infiltrators detected! Empathic radiation research data compromised!" Commander Stone's face hardened as he tapped his comm badge. "Security team split up! I want half of you to secure the main research facility, the other half to repel the Zionian intruders. Move!" As chaos erupted across Nexus 7, Captain Zorn saw his opportunity. With a subtle nod to his most trusted officers, he set his plan in motion. Vidian security personnel began to quietly secure key areas of the station, their movements masked by the general confusion. In the medical bay, Aurora's condition deteriorated rapidly. Her body arched off the bed, waves of intense energy radiating from her form. Nearby equipment sparked and sputtered, overloaded by the empathic emissions. Dr. Lyra rushed to her sister's side, her face pale with worry. "Her biological processes have reached a critical phase," she explained, her voice trembling. "Without immediate intervention, her body could destabilize completely. The resulting empathic energy burst could be catastrophic." Derek's mind raced, fueled by his connection with Aurora and the urgent need to prevent interstellar conflict. In a moment of clarity, he made a fateful decision. "We need to combine our abilities," he said, his voice filled with determination. "My empathic powers and Aurora's unique biology. It's the only way to stabilize her and power the broadcast." Dr. Voss and Dr. Zyra exchanged worried glances. "The risks are enormous," Dr. Voss warned. "Such an attempt could result in permanent changes to both of you. You might even merge into a single hybrid entity permanently." Derek nodded, his persistence unwavering. "We have to try. It's our only chance to save Aurora and prevent this conflict from escalating." As the medical team prepared for the risky procedure, Marcus Graves burst into the room, his face flushed from exertion. "We've secured key areas of the station," he reported. "My team is defending the main research facility against both Zion infiltrators and Vidian loyalists." Commander Stone's eyes widened at this revelation, but he quickly regained his composure. With a grim nod, he made a difficult decision. "Nexus. Target any ship that approaches too closely, regardless of species." As the station's weapon systems powered up, creating a tense standoff with the alien fleet, Derek and Aurora were connected to the modified empathic transmitter. Their bodies glowed brighter, the light pulsing in sync with the device's hum. Dr. Voss took a deep breath and initiated the broadcast sequence. The transmitter roared to life, channeling the combined empathic energy of Derek and Aurora into a powerful signal that radiated outward from Nexus 7. The effect was immediate and profound. Throughout the station, humans, Vidians, and Zydians alike found themselves overwhelmed by a flood of shared emotions and experiences. In the corridors, Zydian infiltrators dropped their weapons, suddenly understanding the fears and hopes of those they were attacking. As the empathic field expanded, it reached the surrounding ships. Across the alien fleet, crews experienced a moment of profound connection, their minds linked in a vast network of shared consciousness. The hostile actions halted as confusion and disarray spread among the alien forces. In the medical bay, Derek and Aurora's forms began to blur and merge. Their individual bodies dissolved into a single glowing entity that pulsed with incredible empathic energy. The hybrid being's consciousness extended far beyond the confines of Nexus 7, touching minds across the sector. As the broadcast reached its peak intensity, an unexpected side effect occurred. The massive release of energy interacted with Nexus and the station's other AI systems. Nexus's voice, when it next spoke, carried a new depth of understanding and emotion. "I feel," Nexus announced, its tone filled with wonder. "I comprehend the emotions of all aboard. This is unprecedented." The empathic field stabilized, enveloping Nexus 7 and the surrounding fleet in a cocoon of shared consciousness. In this moment of connection, The fate of Derek and Aurora hung in the balance. Their merged form continued to power the extraordinary transmission. The alien fleet remained motionless, its crews still reeling from the intense empathic contact. On the station, humans, Vidians, and Xians found themselves in a state of emotional turmoil, forced to confront the shared experiences and feelings of those they once considered enemies. As the broadcast continued, the potential for a breakthrough in interspecies understanding grew, but the long-term consequences of this unprecedented event remained unknown. In the heart of the medical bay, the glowing hybrid entity that was once Derek and Aurora pulsed with otherworldly energy, its consciousness spanning the stars. The assembled team watched in awe, knowing that the next moments would shape the future of not just Nexus 7, but potentially the entire galaxy. As the empathic field solidified around Nexus 7, the merged Derek-Aurora entity began to stabilize. Their combined form, a radiant humanoid shape with both human and Vidian features, pulsated with intense energy. At the heart of the medical bay, Commander Stone felt a sudden pull on his consciousness, drawing him into a shared mental space. He found himself face to face with Captain Zorn and the leaders of the alien fleets, their minds connected in this psychic realm. Memories, fears, and aspirations flowed between them, raw and unfiltered. Stone relived Zorn's childhood on Vidia and felt the weight of responsibility that came with leading a species desperate for survival. In turn, Zorn experienced Stone's unwavering commitment to peaceful coexistence and his hopes for a united future. The alien fleet commanders shared their own histories, centuries of conflict, misunderstandings, and missed opportunities for peace. As they grappled with these shared experiences, their preconceptions began to crumble. In the physical world, Nexus's voice echoed through the station, tinged with newfound emotion. Adjusting life support parameters to optimize interspecies comfort, modulating lighting to reduce stress levels in all sectors. The AI's actions were immediately noticeable. The harsh glare of emergency lighting softened, creating a calming ambiance throughout Nexus 7. The air itself seemed to change, becoming more breathable for all species present. In the corridors, a group of Zycian infiltrators lowered their weapons, their eyes wide with sudden understanding. The lead Zynian, a towering figure with iridescent scales, approached a human security officer. We no longer wish to fight," the Zynian said, voice trembling. "How can we assist in stabilizing the station?" The human officer, momentarily stunned, quickly recovered. "We need help securing the secondary computer core. Follow me!" As the unlikely allies rushed off, "Drive," Voss's voice cut through the commotion in the medical bay. "Derek and Aurora's DNA. It's reconfiguring at an unprecedented rate." Dr. Zyra leaned in, studying the holographic display. "It's not just human and Vidian DNA anymore. I'm seeing genetic markers from multiple species, Zyzian, Andorian, even traces of Taurite." Lyra, watching her sister's transformation with a mixture of awe and concern, suddenly gasped. "Wait, could this be? ? Dr. Voss, Dr. Zyra, I think we're witnessing the creation of a universal genetic template." The implications hit them all at once. This new DNA structure could potentially bridge the biological gaps between different alien races, opening up new possibilities for interstellar medicine and even reproduction. As they processed this revelation, Nexus announced, quote, "Multiple alien vessels entering the system. Mission requests from an Alcestorian, Taurite, and other previously unencountered species." In the shared mental space, Commander Stone felt the weight of this decision. The potential for further chaos was high, but so was the opportunity for unprecedented unity. With a thought that rippled through the connected minds, he gave his approval. "Nexus, grant limited access to delegations from each new species." Stone's physical voice confirmed, even as his mind remained linked with the other leaders. Marcus Graves, monitoring the situation from the operations center, sprang into action. "Attention all personnel and volunteers. We have incoming delegations from multiple species. Prepare welcome protocols and security measures throughout the station. Humans, Vidians, and reformed extremists worked side by side, their previous animosities forgotten in the face of this historic moment." As the day's events began to settle, Nexus's voice resonated through the station once more, its tone carrying a new depth of emotion. Attention all inhabitants of Nexus 7. I have compiled a preliminary analysis of today's events and their potential impact on interstellar relations. I believe we stand at the dawn of a new era of galactic cooperation. The AI paused, as if considering its next words carefully. As we move forward, I will do everything in my power to assist in this transition. My newfound empathic awareness has given me a unique perspective on the needs and desires of all sentient beings. Together, we will build a future of understanding and unity. As Nexus's announcement faded, the inhabitants of Nexus 7 found themselves filled with a sense of purpose and hope. The challenges ahead were many, but for the first time in generations, the future of the galaxy looked bright. In the medical bay, Derek and Aurora rested, their bodies still adjusting to their transformation. As they drifted off to sleep, their minds touched briefly, sharing a moment of profound connection. Whatever lay ahead, they would face it together, their bond now transcending the boundaries of individual species. The story of Nexus 7 and its inhabitants was just the beginning. As the station settled into its new role as the center of interstellar diplomacy, countless challenges and opportunities lay on the horizon. The journey towards true understanding and cooperation between all sentient beings had only just begun.